Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Matthew 11, 28 through 30. And I'm actually going to read from the Message Bible because I like the way it translates this. I don't normally read from the Message Bible, but this really drives it home. Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. Are you tired? This is Jesus talking. Worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. That's the part I like. The unforced rhythm. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So there's a difference between discipline and forcing yourself to do something that God's not with you in. How do you discern when the grace is lifted? I've had this happen many times. And I was speaking to somebody else. I was speaking to Jeremiah, our worship director. I was speaking with Jeremiah. We're talking about this. And I've had this happen many times. But I'll give you his example. And I told him that's what it was. It was grace lifting. He was a driver for many years in the health industry. And his friend owned this corporation. He would transport people that were Baker acted or people that needed to be moved from one hospital to another. And it's admirable work because he got to minister to the people when he drove. So these people that needed help. And he would pray with them, and he just loved that for many years. And some weeks ago, the Lord just made it clear, without saying anything, he just knew he had to move on. He knew it was time to go. He knew it was time to stop. And he didn't have another job. So he called me and we had a long discussion about, what are you going to do and how are you going to make this work? And, how can I help you, Jeremiah, during this time? And, how can I pray for you and all these things? And, he went to get a teacher assistant job because that's the passion of his heart. He wants to teach. He loves to teach. So he thought, well, I'll go get a teacher assistant job. And he went and he thought he nailed the interview. And he didn't get the job. And he's like, oh, man. Meanwhile, he already quit his first job. He gave the 2 weeks notice. And now he's not getting the job that he thought was his dream job. And he was like, oh, man. But he continued to trust the Lord because he knew the grace had lifted. And then he went to get to this other interview. He said he lost his voice because he was singing so much. And he felt like he was unprepared. And that was the door. And the door opened. And now he's on cloud 9 because he got the teacher job. But while I was discussing with him, I said, see, but the grace lifted for you to be with that place. When the grace lifts, something that you used to love becomes a drudgery. When the grace lifts, something that you used to want to do becomes so difficult to do, it's unpleasant. When the grace lifts, something that you felt empowered to do and that you felt responsible to do, it becomes difficult, it becomes heavy. And it becomes hard to carry, and it becomes a true burden. And so many times God will have you praying for somebody. Twice in Scripture, God told people, stop praying for them. He told Jeremiah, don't pray for them anymore. There's times when God is literally saying, don't pray. You don't maybe hear that. Maybe he didn't say that. Maybe you're not perceiving that, but you just feel there's no more grace. And if you keep trying to pray for somebody when God is saying enough, and why does God say enough? Because, maybe it's either A, it's done, or B, they need to go ahead and hit rock bottom, or they need to go ahead and pray for themselves, or they need to go ahead and have an epiphany, or there's something that they need to do that you've prayed as much as you're going to pray. It doesn't mean God won't answer the prayers you've already prayed. God will many times he's trying to answer the prayers you prayed, and sometimes he arranges circumstances in people's lives to where they have to then cry out to God, and then he floods them with grace and love and whatever. But the grace lifts. When the grace lifts, it's drudgery. When I left Charisma magazine, that used to be my favorite thing in the world to do. I loved working with Charisma. And by the time I left, I'm like, get me out of here. And nothing changed. They didn't change. I changed. My assignment changed. I was supposed to travel the nations.